would like to sing our really long Good Morning Train song, click the link above and it will take you to that video. The person we're reading about today in our story loves to dance and groove, and he's always on the move. So I thought we could do a rhyme where we are moving our bodies today. Can you copy what I'm doing in this rhyme? And we will move our bodies together. Hands go up, hands go down. I can turn myself around. I can stand up on one shoe, lift one leg. I can listen, and so can you. I can sit, I'll show you how. Story time is starting now. Let's do it again one more time. And this time, when we get to the end of the song, everyone should be sitting down and ready for our story. Hands go up, hands go down. I can turn myself around. I can stand up on one shoe. Whoa! I can listen, and so can you. I can sit, I'll show you how. Story time is starting now. It's time for our story. Let's get reading. Hi again, everybody. Today we are going to be reading about a really cool cat, and his name is Pete. This story is called Pete the Cat and His 4 Groovy Buttons. This story is a lot of fun because there is a lot of singing in it, and there are some parts of the story that you can say. I am going to be asking you some math questions during this story, but I also need you to remember one line in this story. Every time you hear me say, "Did Pete cry?" I want you to say, "Goodness, no." Do you think you can do that for me? Sounds great. Let's get into the story. Pete the Cat and His 4 Groovy Buttons, created and illustrated by James Dean. Pete the Cat put on his favorite shirt with 4 big, colorful, round, groovy buttons. He loved his buttons so much, he sang this song. My buttons, my 4 groovy buttons, my buttons, my 4 groovy buttons, my buttons, my pop! Oh no! One of the buttons popped off and rolled away. How many buttons are left? 3! 4 minus 1 equals 3. Look, here's Pete's buttons. 1, 2, 3. Did Pete cry? Goodness, no. Buttons come and buttons go. He kept on singing his song. My buttons, my 3 groovy buttons, my buttons, my 3 groovy buttons, my buttons, pop! Oh no, another button popped off and rolled away. How many buttons are left? There were 3 buttons, and 1 popped off. How many are left? 2! 3 take away 1 equals 2. Did Pete cry? Goodness, no! Buttons come and buttons go. He kept on singing his song. My buttons, my 2 groovy buttons, my 2 groovy buttons, my pop! Oh no, another another button popped off and rolled away. How many buttons are left? There were 2, and 1 has popped off. How many buttons are left? 1. 2 take away 1 equals 1. Did Pete cry? Goodness, no. Buttons come and buttons go. He kept on singing his song. My button, my button, my one groovy button. My button, my button, my one groovy button. My button, my pop. Oh no! The last button popped off and rolled away. How many buttons are left? If he had 1 button and it popped off and rolled away, how many buttons does Pete have left? 0. 1 take away 1 equals 0. Did Pete cry? Goodness, no. Buttons come and buttons go. Pete looked down at his buttonless shirt, and what do you think he saw? His belly button! And he kept on singing his song. My button, still have my belly button. My button, still have my belly button. I guess it simply goes to show that stuff will come and stuff will go. But do we cry? Goodness, no. We keep on singing. Buttons come and buttons go. And it's all good. That is the end of Pete the Cat and his 4 groovy buttons. Pete has such a great attitude each time he loses a button, and he doesn't cry when little things go wrong. He just says, it's all good. If you haven't read Pete the Cat's books before, I highly suggest you come and borrow some from the library because they are so much fun. I think it's time for us to do a Pete the Cat themed craft. Let's take a look at what we're going to be doing today. This week we are going to be making our very own Pete the Cats with 4 groovy buttons on their rain jackets, and we will all have a Pete the Cat to keep at our own houses. If you dump out the envelope that came with your craft kit this week, you will find a Pete the Cat body, a raincoat, and a head, and you will also find some groovy buttons that popped out of the envelope. These buttons were so groovy that they kept falling out of the envelope, so you may have a couple extra buttons, and you may actually not have 4. And if you don't have 4, I'm going to show you a solution in just a little bit. You'll also have 2 super groovy Pete the Cat coloring pages to color. The supplies you'll need from your house are glue, some crayons, and then if you need to make some buttons later on, you're going to need a pair of scissors. To begin, we are going to decorate Pete's raincoat. Pete's coat in the story is just plain yellow with colorful buttons, but it is so much fun to color and design the raincoats exactly how we like them. I colored my raincoat into a rainbow pattern since we've been talking about rainbows a lot lately, and I think it looks so cool. I can't wait to see what you guys decorate your raincoats like. Here it is, my finished raincoat. Ta-da! I think Pete is going to like it. The next step is we need to attach Pete's head to his body. Put a little bit of glue where his neck is and stick his head on. And look, it's Pete! He looks so cool. Now we're going to glue that beautiful, wonderful raincoat right onto Pete's body to keep him dry from the rain. Wow, Pete, you look awesome! Our last step is to deal with those super groovy buttons that keep popping off and rolling away. I want you to put 4 little circles inside each of your buttons, and you'll see, now they look like real buttons. Do that with all 4 of your little circle buttons. Now if you are short a button, I want you to take that envelope that all of your pieces came in, draw 4 circles on the envelope, and decorate them just like the other buttons we just decorated. And then I want you to color them your favorite colors, and look! You have 4 amazing, groovy buttons that you can cut out and glue on Pete. Now from here, you can either leave your buttons loose and read the story again with me and do some subtraction with Pete and his buttons, or you can glue them on if you're all finished playing with Pete for today. And that's what I'm doing here. I'm gluing my 4 groovy buttons right on Pete. Now we all have our very own Pete the Cat to move and groove with while we are at home. I took my new friend Groovy Pete and I hung him up in the library so that I can see him every day. You look great, Pete. Thank you for sending me all of these pictures, friends. Look at how many amazing crafts you did last week. It is so much fun hanging out with you every Friday at Storytime, and I can't wait to read to you again soon. See you next week. Goodbye!